mean,
some room.
Yeah. If we could take that as our measuring stick of how we parented, then we all have one to slap ourselves with, because we just don't make it. There's no perfect parent in this earth, none.
Well, those are very wise words. There is no perfect parent on this earth, and no perfect person. That's, what Jesus is here to be. So that's not really, we're striving every day. But because children are like little sponges, and they're learning always through vibrations and observation, as you just said, can you give me an example of that learning at work for you as you were raising your sons?
Well, one thing that I can remember that has stayed with me is our middle son, Dan, and who's now in his very successful man today, and he's in his 40s with 5 children of his own. He always had the tender heart. He always wanted to help the person that was what the world would call an underdog. And he had a friend named Roberto who was having problems with his mother. She was a single mom. His father had passed away, and he wasn't very happy with his mother at the time. And so he decided he was going to run away from home. And so I noticed at dinner that Dan had taken some food with him from the dinner table and had left. And I thought, gee, that's odd. What is he doing? And I would find out that later that evening, Roberto's mother would come to our door to ask us if we knew where Roberto was, because she couldn't find him. And so we called Dan. He was in his bedroom, and we called him to the living room, and he just sat there with this blank look on his face. What had happened was Roberto did run away from home, and he ran up into the treehouse in their backyard. And he was going to live up there, and Dan was going to take him food so he could survive. And but at the time, we didn't know that's what would happen. But finally, his father told him, Dan, you have to tell Roberto's mother the truth. She's very worried. And he felt really bad that he had to give up his best friend's hideout. And he resented us for a couple of days on that one. But as he began to realize that you can't live in a treehouse forever, he was able to let that one go. So that was a positive thing that happened in his life. Another time I can remember, he had a friend that got involved in some pornography. He had books in the house, let me put it that way. He was a neighbor friend, and Dan came to us because he was very disturbed by that. And so his dad just said, you can't go to Robert's house anymore. And so Dan was able to go over and tell Robert, Dad found out, and I can't come in your house anymore. And isn't Dad a really mean man not to let me come over and see you anymore? But Dan had an out. He had a way to use his father as an excuse for why he couldn't do something. And when kids are young, they need buffers. They need we're there as parents to protect them and to also know that we can take the blunt of something for them. And so there's just different scenarios when you're parenting. You just walk them through one by one, and sometimes you do wise ones, sometimes not so wise. But we always know that God is the one who is in control, and we can't screw up that bad that he can't fix it.
Absolutely. And that really touches my heart because I have a thing for underdogs myself. And so I relate to wanting to take my friend the food in the treehouse. How adorable. How sweet. That's just a testament of the son you raised and the kindness. And he's like, I'll feed him my food. Don't worry about it. We'll let him live in the treehouse. Oh gosh, kids. How adorable. I love that you and Ed, though, gave him all that he needed in order to really be an empathetic person that way, and you gave him healthy boundaries. And what I've found in teaching with children, as I've worked with them in the past, is that those healthy boundaries come in handy when we're up against that very thing that, like that example you gave about the other friend with the pornography, and he was uncomfortable with it, but he was able to lean into that boundary and the buffer and use his dad as a protector, even though it was framed as he's the big bad monster. He was really protecting Dan from what he was uncomfortable with in himself. So I think that is a testament again to parenting at its finest, because even though it was a no and he knew the morals that you guys had, he was able to say, I can't be here because of this. And part of him was like, whew, and relieved, I can't be here because I'm not comfortable with it. And my dad's horrible, so I got to go, and I love that, even though it wasn't the case at all, but that is so important, guys. So if you're listening, that's a gem right there. Whether you have two parents in the home or you're a single mother or a single father, be the buffer for your child because they like the boundary, even if they act like they don't. Okay? So that's a good lesson there. Now, we've talked a lot about that you have two successful sons in the business realm, and I want everyone to know that they've been at the helm of million-dollar businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, and by the world standards, this is a model of success. Everybody wants to know how to, not just one son is successful, but you have two children that you raise that are, in that realm, and you have Kate, who's an amazing single mother and is an incredibly hard worker, and her millions are coming. I always tell her millions are on the way. But, I just wonder, how did you do that? How did you get to have these kids that have this incredible work ethic? And many parents would seek to replicate this with their own children. Do you think that you imparted anything in particular to cause this to be a reality for them, that financial kind of success they've had? I mean, you're a business person yourself, so they come by it honestly, both you and Ed.
Well, they knew that it would be hard work. They weren't afraid to work. They weren't afraid to. All three of them are hard workers. They don't have an expectation that it will be handed to them, and they weren't raised in a wealthy home, but they did see the ethic of hard work. And there's something in a person when they're born. There's a plan of God inside there. It's not a seed that we as parents put in. It is the seed of Christ's plan for their life, and we as parents have them from a short term to water that and nurture it and allow it to grow. But the success to me isn't so much on the dollar sign. It's how they live their life out. How do they affect the world that they're influencing, not only with money, but with their own person of who they are? And the bottom line is, if they have no relationship with the Lord, then they're not a success. So it's all internal, and what's internal will be expressed externally. So that is the direction they went. That is the natural abilities that they all have. They could tend towards it. My two sons are totally opposite in what they chose to do for careers, and Kate also. So it is something that we as parents need to wait upon and watch and have the direction of the Holy Spirit of where to send them and direct them. Some are musical. Mine weren't. It's just... for me to have drowned them into music. Now, my oldest son loves to sing. He loves to sing, and he loves music. But there wasn't a time in his childhood with us that he wanted to be sitting at a piano for 5 hours a day to learn music. So it's just something, Monette, that we as parents have to have wisdom daily. Daily prayer. Where are you taking my child? Where are you taking your child? Because honestly, they're not our children. They're His. And He has purpose for them, for His kingdom and for His glory. And we seek His face, and He will lead us and guide us in those. And the spirit of forgiveness is always there. And the most important thing is we have to remember to breathe.
Yes.
It takes a lot of oxygen. Just breathe. Just enjoy the moments and breathe. Watch and observe.
Absolutely.
And enjoy being the parent you are at that moment, because it goes too fast.
Oh, my goodness. It does. I have had the pleasure of watching Kate's son grow up, and I can't believe he's at the age he is now, because I remember him when he was 3. And so I just don't even know what happened. Did we get old? Like, he's now almost going to be going to college soon. It's insane to me.
No, we're not old. They're just getting older.
Oh, that's it. Yes. I stand corrected. And so that kind of brings me to my next point. In the recent years, there's been a great debate as to the validity of college. Is this necessary? And many millennials are opting out of this institution and choosing instead to kind of blaze their own trails and their own paths. And they're experiencing great success, a lot of them as well. And others are choosing the more traditional route, which is the college and the student loans and all of that jazz. What are your thoughts as to the necessity of college, especially juxtaposed against these sons that have these businesses that are very financially well off and doing very well? What do you think about college now versus then, versus, like, let's say the 80s versus now?
Back in the 80s, that going to college was the next step to succeed in business, and so both the boys did that. But today, I know Anthony has said to me, they both graduated from the University of Wyoming, and Anthony has said, Mother, what I learned to do my business today, I could have learned in 6 months. But on the other side, my other son, who's an engineer, in order for him to have his business, he has to have those credentials on the wall. If he did not have those credentials on the wall, he could not do what he's doing. So there again, it's just the energy by which they are directed to go. And so Anthony has used his degree in various places, but today, like he said, what he needs to manage his business today, a lot of the college wasn't used. But so Gary again, is that waiting on the Lord. Where do I send my son? What does he want to do? Where is his energies? Where is his strengths? And creating that environment where they can be expressed and let him develop into who God has created him to be.
Yeah, it really is a different thing. And that's a really good offering there for the listeners. There's two ends of the spectrum. One son needs those credentials on the wall. The other son has the credentials, but says, you know what, I kind of picked up what I needed to know in the first 6 months in order to be as successful as I've been. So really great advice from Miss Barbara today. Lean not unto your own understanding, but lean into God and really figure out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I look at I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and I wanted to, in this whole thing, put our Kate, because we have watched God open doors for her, for what she's doing today.
Oh, yes.
I am so amazed of, because you don't have time in the talk show to see how God has just opened doors for her to walk through, and how she has been willing to walk through them. She has had her disappointments, and then God will open a door, and she is willing to take on the new challenge and to put her mindset to that I can do this and walk through and do what she needs to do. And she is such a valiant soldier. Her dad and I cannot we just stand in the bleachers cheering her on, because she is such a remarkable woman.
She really is.
Yeah.
She is brave.
And I know you know her personally, but...
Yes. Well, I could gush and gush. We could be here all day, because Kate has been such a dear friend to me, and has showed me what real friendship means and what it's like. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that she always agrees with me. Sometimes she absolutely kind of, as they say, the Lord chastises who he loves, or loves who he chastises. Sometimes Kate will get me together and say, let's take a look at that again. Maybe that's not the right way, or maybe that's not the right person. And I so value her opinion, because I know, well, now I know where the source is from. It's coming from God, but she got a lot of that energy and information filtered through you and Ed, and you two are so incredibly wise and insightful. So I just feel so lucky, and she is a soldier, and that's why I tell her your millions are coming. I know it. They're already they're already there for you. That's coming. So no, we do not want to forget Kate at all. Because she has an incredible work ethic. Actually, Kate, I must say, I'm going to brag a little bit, taught me about work ethic. I have always just been a creative soul, and I've done a little bit of everything I've wanted to do. But over the last 3 years, I've really seen an uptick in success for me. And that's because I was watching Kate model her work ethic. And I always would tell her how impressed I was. I mean, she gets up, she goes to work, rain or shine, sick or not. She takes chances, like you said, and goes into new career opportunities when they're presented for her. She doesn't stay stagnant. And she was a model for me in so many ways to get myself together, that even though what I do is creative and it's different than what she's doing, I still realized I had to put in hard work every day. And I had just kind of rested on my laurels of like, oh, well, I'll be able to just get by on being creative. And Kate showed me and told me that is not so. I'm so proud of her and impressed with her every day because of that. I don't know how she does it. All the jobs, everything she does, it's amazing. So
she's a remarkable woman.
She really is. She really is. And before we go today, so many beautiful gems you've left us with, but I would love for you to leave the listeners with a little bit more of your hard-earned wisdom about exactly what it is. And I think we know it's definitely leaning on the Lord, but is there anything that you want to add before I let you get back to your job today? Because I know you've got a whole church to run.
Well, to me, prayer on your knees, you pray and you seek, and when you pray over your children, the best prayer that I can say is, thy will be done. Because I do not know that will. But daily, that is my prayer over my children, over my husband, over my grandchildren. Lord, thy will be accomplished in their lives today. And whatever that looks like, I'm